Christy Wood.
Tim Broderick.
Matt Jazokis.
Janice Christian.
Heidi Duper. And please rise for the allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alright, so the agenda review for, I didn't say today's date, but February 16th.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
I'd like to move the data presentation for the interventionists up for the first on informational items. And then athletics can be after, so the two presentations.
Yeah,
Alright, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Make a motion to approve the minutes from January 31st, 26.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Public input for agenda items only. Seeing none, hearing none. We'll move on to informational items. We'll have the data presentation from the interventionists first. Ladies, when you're ready.
So tonight, just introduced, we have Tanya Atkinson, Kate Noon, and Katie Diggs, who are here. Katie's kind of in a double role right now, so she's keeping her hand and foot in the interventionist, but also, as you guys know, teaching. So,
Absolutely.
so I'll hand it over to Tanya.
Okay.
Wherever's comfortable, go for it.
We're just gonna move our slides for a moment. Okay. We are the intervention team. I'm Tanya Atkinson. I work in 5 through 8 literacy intervention.
I'm Kate Noon. I work with K to 4 in literacy.
And Katie Diggs, 5 through 8, English Grant. And Jill, as Matt said, couldn't be here tonight. Her son is a senior and she is with him at a sports game. So this team is working together sort of for the first time as a whole cohesive team. Katie is on board now. She's currently covering a teaching position, but she's about to be our other math interventionist, so we're about to have a fully working intervention team, which is really exciting for us. We're hoping to give you some insight into what we've been working on. We're going to go over some of the things that we've been doing to try to make some inroads, some progress moving forward, and to make sense of some of the things that we're doing and eventually let you know how we're hoping to improve outcomes. Kate is going to start by talking about some of our assessment tools.
You've probably all seen maybe some reports go home, read some minutes about it, but in K to 8 we do assessments starting from the beginning of the year to the end. We start off with STAR, which covers both math and literacy. DIBELS is new this year to the district, and DIBELS covers reading, fluency, and comprehension. The students are tested from K to 8. In math is USNS, which is K to 2, and in K to 2 it's related to assessing the younger kids on their basic number sense. And then we're going to talk about what we're doing to support all our testing. So we have WIN is what I need, and that's what we're going to really discuss. And then we're going to talk about what we're doing moving forward. We shared out the data with everybody, which is multiple pages of data, but we're looking at what are we going to do to bring up the data in the end. So how we have been working together with the teachers and with the students to improve the data in the school.
The first assessment that we're going to talk about is STAR. That is one of the assessments that we use multiple times a year. It's taken 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. And it's an adaptive test, so as the students work on it, it kind of figures out what level they're at and it moves to meet them. And it's a really nice tool for us to be able to keep track of things. So we aren't just looking at data once a year with the SAS. Obviously that happens once a year, but this happens more frequently. And it also has a really nice tie-in with, we have access to the Renaissance portal, which is tied in with STAR. And so all that test data goes right into that portal. We're able to see what standards the students are lacking in or what skills they might be needing, and it can help us to make grouping decisions and also utilize some of the technology that system has to kind of, they have adaptive supports like Freckle, like Lalilo, like Nearpod, things that we can use at various levels of the school to support their growing, their learning, but it's just kind of one measure that we use. I know for me personally, it's been one of the main things that I'm using to help do the win groupings throughout the year. And then we're gonna talk about Dibbles.
Yeah, so, for me, doing the Dibbles is something that is really important to me because it really finds out the foundational skills that students really have. Like STAR, it does test kids in reading, but it tests them as an overall reader. With Dibbles, it is something it can identify where there might be some gaps because it's given one-on-one to students. When I'm doing Dibbles with the students, it takes about 5 minutes in total. And it really can help me as an interventionist, and I can help teachers target their instruction because I can say to them, okay, this assessment is saying this about your child. A lot of times people think that Dibbles should be just K-4, but using Dibbles with older students, I find you can really help identify kids that are older that might still need reading instruction, because even though you completed K-4, you still need to be instructed how to read. And I can, after looking at some of the SAS and some of the assessments, I've used Dibbles for a long time in my other district. It's able to help, again, the teacher, the interventionist sort of say, okay, if a child is going to have to take a SAS kind of assessment, we still need to work on A, B, and C with them. Dibbles is given 3 times a year. It's just a way with STAR and Dibbles and other assessments to triangulate data. It's a very important tool if you need help identifying students that might be at risk for dyslexia. And when Dibbles is usually selected by a district because this is recommended by the state to use this to identify dyslexia. For me, I'm going to actually assess an 8th grade student pretty soon using this tool. And, you know, it was recommended by the parent, and I said, sure, I can help you identify this and screen a student, and then they can make recommendations to speak to an expert about it. So it's a great tool. So that's cool.
Did you already?
Yeah, I kind of talked about this.
I was supposed to change the slide.
That's okay, I can still talk about this, but, a lot of times, and it happens everywhere, people will often say like, there's Dibbles, but my child did so well on STAR. They're very different assessments. When I think of Dibbles is a way to kind of figure out what might be broken in a system. So I think of going to the doctor, I'm getting my blood pressure taken, and it might say, oh, you have high blood pressure. This is what we're going to do to kind of treat you. So as an interventionist, I can look at Dibbles and say, okay, I'm seeing these areas that say your nonsense words or your oral reading fluency. Those little quick tests can kind of help, again, where I could see, hey, in the classroom, you might need to work on this. In WIN groups, you might need to work on this. Because oftentimes, STAR data will come out higher than what a Dibbles would. Because Dibbles is really foundational, and STAR covers like the overall reader, vocabulary, and comprehension. And Dibbles does a lot more, it digs deeper. Another thing that I would think about with Dibbles, sometimes people say, well, my child does so well on their report card, but their Dibbles is showing that they're red. Again, if you think about a classroom, I was a classroom teacher for about 25 years, I think about how much support I would provide my students. I would be there to say, okay, you need this resource to help you. You need an extra adult to help you. When you're doing Dibbles, it's really just you and the child. And unfortunately, or fortunately, you're timed in Dibbles, and you're not provided any support. You're kind of like, here we are, this is, I want to know, do you know your letter? Do you know your letter sound? And STAR, it's adaptive, but they're still very different. and in dibbles, and the classroom performance, still very different. So oftentimes teachers say, well, they're this and that, and parents will say, but they're very different assessments. So I'd be happy to ever talk about dibbles and the importance of dibbles with older kids too, so. But, sorry, I talk a lot, I can talk a lot about this.
Quick question, so does the
Yeah.
science of reading curriculum or program coincide with the
Yes.
dibbles like format, so they can go hand in
It-
hand, or?
When you're doing dibbles and you're thinking about moving forward with a curriculum, dibbles would be recommended typically by any curriculum with science of reading. My other district, I was on the committee to select a curriculum for science of reading, and we use dibbles to do the assessments. Dibbles is mostly used by interventionists, like I test all K to 4 kids, Tommy tests all 5 to 8 kids. Teachers right now, they have access to doing progress monitoring, so I could say to the teacher, hey, you know, this student needs to work on this, work on this in a small group, and then assess them. So they have access to the materials, so we can kind of collaborate and touch base on those things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So any program that, say, in the future, the district chooses to go to, this would be one that they say, yes, they're in line with it.
Okay, thanks.
And next, Katie is gonna talk a little bit, on behalf of Jill, so.
Yeah, so please know I'm
So be-
reading this,
be
sorry.
clear.
So along with STAR test that Tanya discussed, we're also using CPMs and benchmarks through STAR. Grades 3 and 4 teachers are also utilizing the New Hampshire SAS practice tests and modulars and incorporating vocabulary into their daily lessons.
Nice. You ready?
You need to be out.
Do you want to touch base on that, or do you want me to talk about what I know about
I
this?
think you will do better because you know a lot more than I do.
I'm not the math person, but I understand this. So this universal screener for number sense is something that is really an interview based with students, and what is beneficial about having an interview with students versus, say, a STAR assessment, this is putting my teacher hat on, I knew some of my students were happy clickers on a test on the computer. I just knew some of my students were clicking away. But I know with this screener, especially with little kids who, taking the test this year, where I was supporting kindergarten, they had trouble like moving things around to take this assessment. So taking a test like this, do you know if it's technology issues that they had, or is it their number sense? So when you're taking a screener, and I know I watched Jill do this, you're really having an interview and you're providing materials to the child and actually having a conversation with them about math. Doing it this way is beneficial because you can actually see their math thinking in front of you. And then as you do that, you can take notes. Hey, I noticed that they can count by tens, or I noticed that this. And this is a good way to report back to teachers, like before the school year really gets going with all the curriculum. And, you can identify foundational skills and gaps, and where an interventionist and a classroom teacher needs to go. Jill wanted to mention that if you want access to what the test looks like, she can send us a link to you. It's at the bottom of the screen, but she said she could send you the link, just so you know what it looks like. Just let me know what that means. I don't really know that one, but I just know enough about it.
You did well.
That's what I was about. All right, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about WIN. We have WIN in our building all throughout the grades. It stands for What I Need, and it's a set period of the day where we are able to do some more personalized learning. So they can get support if they need to be supported or remediated, but they also can get enrichment if that is where they're at. So that's a really flexible time for us. In the younger grades, I think it has been pretty successful situation. The teachers are self-contained in the younger grades. They have their set group of students. One of our goals this year was to improve the way that WIN is happening in the middle school. And I know that this is sort of like a unified approach across the grades, but particularly in middle school, we needed to make some changes. So we've made quite a few changes, actually. Obviously, we're presenting to you as a team of interventionists, which is new for us this year. and having the ability to sort of support teachers, be the front line of data and bring them together has been really, I think, a positive improvement here. Just being able to take some of that off the plate of the teachers and put it into the hands of people who can see and work with a bigger group of students has been really, really important. And also, it's allowed us to kind of start shifting our focus to data-driven decision-making. And I think that the school has been using, I mean, teachers use data obviously all the time to instruct their teaching, but I think we're working on doing this more as a entire building and looking more big picture than just being focused on just your classroom. We wanna really look at all of these screeners and supports and tests that we've been telling you about. We use them all together with the goal of knowing our students and what they need. So that's been really a big positive change this year. Our intervention cycles, the scheduling of it, the WIN was moved so that all the Unified Arts teachers are available to us at the same time in middle school. So we really have a cohesive plan where everyone is either in an extension or a supported intervention group. So they're getting to, and they're changing too. So one time they might be in an intervention group, and the next time they might be in an extension group, because maybe they're struggling in math, but they're not struggling in reading. So once the student is kind of put into a direction, we're a little bit more flexible now with our grouping because of these changes. Obviously, our teaching teams are working hard to support their student needs, but we're able to kind of collaborate a bit more, I think, this year with these supports in place and be more responsive to things as they happen. So we can plan for a 6-week cycle, but we can also kind of pause and regroup and restructure if needed. So it's not like you're stuck into there if you need to. I can kind of steer people into the right place if they need to be. Just being more immediately responsive to our data and laying a foundation for the future, because we know this is a foundational year for us, and we are working on improving this over time. So we know that this year we're taking some of the first steps to get things a little bit more successful, and that is gonna be a work in progress as we move forward. And all of these things have been our goal, obviously, of the SAS scores are the scores that ultimately need to be improved, right? And what we have for you here is our spring SAS scores, and I think we would all agree that we want them to look differently than that. Those are the reading scores, those are the math scores. Obviously, our below proficient numbers are higher than we would want them to be. So one of the things that we are focused on this year to try and improve that is a lot more of the modular practices, a lot more of the practice tests, getting kids used to the format of these tests. So we're also working on that. One of the things that we're working on in this building as well is just improving the culture around testing, the attitude about what it means to take a test like this or the STAR test or anything, just helping kids to see that it's a measure of what, to show us what they know so that we can sort of build things around that for them and work with them. But, you know, I think testing isn't always a student's favorite thing to do, but we want them to know that the work that they do here, we want to see it, you know, we want to see the evidence of what they're learning, because our goal ultimately is to have students who are far more proficient than they are currently, right? And like I said, we know that this is a tough battle ahead, improving these scores. But we feel like we have a really good team here, and we're working to sort of just be more responsive. So our looking forward plans, we, like I said, want to be more responsive. We want to be more diligent with our progress monitoring. Progress monitoring just means that we're checking sort of in between these assessments so that we can be even more proactive and responsive if something's changing. We kind of have more of a pulse, our finger on the pulse of it. And system-wide alignment too is something that's really important. We're doing a lot of work within the building, but we're also meeting regularly as an intervention team across the district. And so that's been really nice to help to align with Barnstead and see how things are going, and also to meet with the high school and look forward. to what, you know, we're sending students up to the high school, how is that connection happening, and how are we supporting our kids kind of fluidly throughout. So we think that our, you know, this data-driven approach is we are very, very, very hopeful and positively focused on getting some meaningful improvement in those scores, as this all starts to come together, but we're really excited. We think it's been a really good year, and I think that's it. Yeah, do you guys have any questions for us?
Real quick on the win for this middle school especially,
Yes.
you said there was a 6-week, period. Do you have anything more short term? Or, how do you identify somebody that needs intervention?
So right now, we're, so like at the beginning of the year, we used a lot of, the testing data, and it was sort of, you know, it's from the last year, so we start at the beginning with that, and then as the fall scores come in, we update them and group them based on those scores that came in. But if we have these flex weeks that we've been doing in between, so if a student has a need to get, caught up in their class, or missing work, or support from a teacher. So we've built in some opportunities like that throughout. In terms of the 6 weeks, we've been staying pretty strict to the 6 weeks right now, because before we were doing much shorter interventions and not really seeing much benefit. And 6 weeks is kind of like the standard, has this, when you
Research says
Yeah.
6 to 8 weeks in the intervention.
in order to see some significant improvement. So this year, we've stayed pretty strict to the 6 weeks so that we can collect some data and see if that is an improvement over last year. But that's just been our approach this year.
And is there anything for intervention for math in the middle school? You mentioned the universal screener for K through 2, but is there some kind of another screening tool for middle school that will be used, or
Is there?
not yet?
We've been using STAR right now as that piece of it, plus we get feedback from the teachers, so right now, our math teacher and our science teacher will work with our students that need some extra support in that area, so.
Okay.
When I, sorry.
No, go
But
ahead.
usually, and I feel like I'm but usually what I did is, even in previous schools, we did a cross-curriculum type of thing, but I just haven't gotten into the job, which I'm kind of
Yeah.
glad, because I've gotten used to it. I got to know your students, which is fabulous. And the curriculum, because we had a vertical alignment meeting, which I'm really excited about, because that was one thing we were discussing. The students here go from 7th grade, to go straight into algebra, and it's all the 8th grade. So that's a big challenge. So trying to teach it, you're trying to teach 2 levels at the same time. So that discussion has come up. So that once I get into the role, which I'm very excited about, afterwards, then being able to come up with some, different ways to put things in place or whatnot. But right now, the STAR and.
But
the
STAR
SAS
does have a lot of
area.
benchmarking and progress monitoring things built into it, so
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what you'll
STAR
start
has
with.
STAR has in there, it's called CBMs, and the CBMs are something where it's a quick check on a certain skill area that you want the students to check on them. So kind of like Dibbles, I can go really quick for a minute or two, and STAR also has what is called a CBM.
Oh, okay.
And the CBM can get quick data for a classroom teacher to use. So you can use it in literacy and in math.
And as part of the STAR assessment suite,
Yeah.
they have access to Freckle, so the good part about that and the Lilo and their part is that it takes the information, so once they take the STAR assessments, it starts uploading that year in and year out. And then the teacher can go and jump in Freckle and see, Matt's really struggling in this standard. And then they could use the software, they do some direct instruction, but also the software to do some follow-up work on it. So it ties hand in hand with it, so the teacher isn't always, or the intervention isn't always having to say, here's where they're struggling and here's what you should be working on. We do have some software to help support them in that.
And I also noticed in the younger grades, just walking around, that some of the teachers are accessing Zern, and Zern is part of using Eureka. When I use Zern, I could say, okay, again, like Matt was saying, this child needs support in this area, I can assign an assignment, something that I've already done in the class with the student, it would show them another review video that they could practice. If they're not successful, it makes them watch the video and practice again. So I've seen a couple teachers in the elementary area use that, especially with the Eureka, it's successful too.
So this is all part of, you've heard over the last couple of years, MTSS, the multi-tiered systems of supports. This is all part of that piece of it. And what these guys are doing is really kind of, visualizing and zeroing in on sort of the tier 1 support. So try to get them the support that they need as soon as they can so that it doesn't become a tier 2 or tier 3 student. In Title I as well, we get direct instruction, we also have some wind, but also the Title I teachers are able to pull the child again. So there's more than just one approach to it to help support the kids early on, and even as they get up into the middle level. And I think, as Kate pointed out, even with dibbles, typically, you don't see it as much in the middle level, but I think it's important because there are kids who have fallen through the cracks, or they're missing some skills that we want to try to get before they head off to the high school.
Using the dibbles in the middle school grades, we're able to actually look at the students and group them potentially for a win group. Because I can look at, like I was looking at the dibbles for older kids, and I can say, oh, okay, this group needs to work on morphology, they need to work on understanding the meaning of words and how they work. Doing that in a small group actually helps support things in SAS. So, I think using the tools that we have can really make fabulous groups that should be fluid. I always think groups should be fluid. Once you get this, we're moving on, what else do we need?
I do also want to throw out a shout out to our UA team as well, because, one of the things they're doing is they're working with kids who don't necessarily fall into needing the intervention pieces of it, so those kids are able to work with some of our UA teachers in sort of extensions or even an enrichment type of thing, and they've done a good job of talking with the teachers, knowing what's going on in the classrooms, and trying to tailor what they're doing to reinforce what's going on in the classroom, so it's a nice way
That's a good point.
of supporting those kids as well, versus them putting them in a study hall for 5 days a week and just say, sit there, and that's not a good use of their time.
And can I say one more? I think it also will help us to identify gaps in our curriculum, the holes that need to be fixed there, because with numbers, with that low of proficiency, obviously just intervention isn't going to fix the problem. But having this holistic approach is gonna help us to say, okay, where are we losing it in this, in the vertical alignment? Is there something we're missing that's leading to gaps in learning later on? And then we can sort of, temper that issue, and I think all of the other things will.
Definitely. All of the pieces that we're talking about kind of helps you make decisions what needs to happen in tier 1.
Right.
Because intervention and all these other things are not going to fix scores. It helps you identify what do we need to do here so the numbers coming out of the room are less.
Right.
So that's kind of how I look at intervention and data.
Could you give us an idea how many in just middle school are in Wayne for reading and math and enrichment, like by grade or just a
So
general
right
idea?
now, our intervention groups in middle school, we try to keep them pretty small for the people who are receiving an intervention in an area, so 6 or less. So you might be in if it's like an intensive reading group, I might even bump it down to lower than that, because you want the kids to be getting the type of support that they need. And then the extension, so those are 6 weeks, we have probably 6 or 7 teachers doing them, so, it's probably between 36 and 42 students in an intervention. And then the rest of those students are in, like Matt said, sort of, really focused on whatever they're working on in their curriculum. The teachers are working together with UA to make sure that it's an extension of their current curriculum, and those people will be, the rest of the classes will be in there.
Any questions? Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. This is really critical and necessary, and I can't wait to see the results of your
Thank you for listening.
Your work.
And I-
Yes,
and I-
that's
and I
exciting.
if you don't mind, they should be commended as well. I didn't mean to leave you out because, they've been, you know, building the plane as they've been flying it, so. We've joked about that at the beginning. We've given them some ideas, but we also wanted them to kinda make it their own and kinda guide through that piece of it, so. But also that, they've done a great job in reaching out to Barnstead and then really building a solid bond between the interventionists over there, so there's good conversations. We meet on a monthly basis, the entire system, to talk about, you know, what's going well, what's struggling, and get feedback from both ends, so I think it's been beneficial for everybody, involved, and I thank them for following along.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
We'll go ahead and move on to the athletics discussion, James, so we can get you out of here too.
Sure. Actually have a golf championship on a simulator tonight, so that's why I'm heading after this. Yeah. First thing I wanted to say, obviously, to everyone was thank you for time and effort that went into the decision around football. Public hearing, I don't remember who brought it up, but I think it was a great path for us to go down to hear from the community, and it was nice to see the community come out and support it and in that environment. So I just want to say thank you for that. By the way, we're about halfway to our fundraising goal in 4 weeks. Just to give you an idea, so things are off and running. I feel really good about that. Our budget assessments were way above what our actual is going to be. So when I built it all out, that was all off the street pricing. You know, we're getting helmets $200 less than we thought per helmet, you know, that type of thing. So numbers are coming in lower, and we're raising a heck of a lot of money right now, which I think is, you know, great setup. Academic probation, this is now rolled out at both of the middle schools. That's been going on now for about 3 to 4 weeks. It's gone well so far. We've had a few athletes who have had to sit out, but then, you know, they've also got their grades in order and we're able to go back and compete. So no real negative feedback. I think it's just a lot of learning, trying to figure out what week you're in, when can you participate, when can you not, those sort of things. But it's been going pretty well so far, and we, same thing at the high school when we really rolled this out. You have this initial blitz, everyone kind of figures out what's going on, and then you know, I end up working with the schools, the admin, and then ultimately the families to figure out the best scenario for that kid based on what's going on. And so far it's worked really well. We are looking to roll out a student athlete leadership team at the middle school. I actually have our high school SALT team working on the infrastructure of this and how we may roll it out. So they're working on that now, and we'll start to communicate and talk about what that may look like at the middle schools. And then the last kind of quick update before I get to what I'm really here for, we had a induction ceremony into our Prospect Mountain Athletics Hall of Fame. It was the 1973 to 77, 74 to 77 Alton High School girls basketball team. We did that on Friday. It's probably the most people I've ever seen in the gym at Prospect. I think we had 10 of the players along with the coach that were there with their families. Great way to recognize them. Emotional night for them, which was cool. And we actually had our girls playing in 1975 replica uniforms that looked exactly like what they wore in 75. Carolina blue, the socks, the whole deal. It was a pretty cool night for the community. So that went off, great success, obviously honoring you know, the kids that played right in this gym that were pioneers that were in our community. So cool event. I'm honestly happy it's over. Quite a bit of planning, trying to pull together dozens of people from 50 years ago that are currently in their 60s and 70s, trying to get them all in one place. So, but it ended up being great. What I'm here for today is to bring up a topic that we talked about in October, and we originally talked about it at the JMA, made the decision at that point to kind of separate and talk about it at each individual school, and that's the potential of combining middle school athletics with Barnstead and Alton. In full disclosure, we did go and meet with the Barnstead board, I think it was 3 weeks ago, and had, or it must have been a month ago now, had this discussion. This was the first opportunity to get in front of all of you, so wanted to kind of bring it back up. I'll briefly run over just some, or go over some notes and thoughts I have on it, and then just looking to have a conversation and kind of see what your thoughts are about potentially moving forward with that. One of the things that I'm looking at now that I'm in kind of second year of being here at Prospect, or being the athletic director, is step one was let's make sure, like, are we good today, right? Like, think about like a hierarchy of needs. Can we get buses places? Do we have coaches? Are our teams, well equipped and those sort of things? As you start to go along, I start to look at how do we have great momentum. How do we keep building this pie and make things go the direction that we want to go as we move forward? I feel like we have that momentum. We've made good coaching hires. The teams are competitive. I'm starting to look down the pipeline and asking myself, am I going to feel that way 5 years from now with the current infrastructure that we have at the middle schools in terms of developing players as they come up through? What I don't want to have happen is we have the best facilities, great coaches, all this momentum, and everything is built up in the athletic department, and our teams are maybe not necessarily ready to compete at that level. So what are some of the things that we can do now to create the infrastructure to support the athletes in grades 5 through 8 to make sure that when they get to Prospect, they're ready to go? And so, a couple of quick things, like my whole life has been built around, my adult life now, built around finding ways to help young athletes turn into successful high school athletes and potentially college athletes. So I have a pretty good feel for kind of like what you need to do to get a kid to go through that process. Tiering them can help. And so what we're talking about here is not just creating an A team and forget everyone else. It's taking where a kid currently is, their skill set, their talent level, and putting them around other kids who are in that similar band. That allows a coach to be able to focus a little more and coach to that specific group and that specific skill set. One of the problems we run into now is even on an A team at either school, you may be teaching a kid how to dribble and teaching another kid the finer points of post-up moves and reverse layups. As a coach, you end up having to resort to the mean to get your team to be competitive. So you're really not doing everything you should be doing for your top level players, and you're not doing everything that you can do for the players that maybe need a little bit more skill development. And so if we're able to tier between the two schools, A, B, C, black, blue, white, whatever we want to call them, but tier the kids into groups that band their skill sets a little bit more closely aligned, it'll allow our coaches to develop the kids at a better rate and a little more consistently. One of the things I also think it does, it's kind of this idea of iron sharpens iron. Our A teams can go and compete against more difficult teams. So by the time they get to high school, they've already played some Concord, Nashua, whoever. And by the time they come back to Division III at Prospect Mountain, they've already been competing at a really high level at the middle school. It creates a better JV program, a better varsity program. Turns opponents into teammates earlier, right? We have all these kids that step on campus as a freshman. They've been playing against each other for 4 years. This is an opportunity to have them playing together for 4 years. If I'm a coach at the varsity level, my expectation of that coach is that you own the program, the whole funnel. So it'd be nice if they have the opportunity to set what an offense and defense looks like, how they teach at varsity, JV, now also at A and B, without having to run to multiple schools and talk to multiple coaches, because the funnel is structured in a way that gives them a little bit easier access down the funnel, so we can be creating some consistency with how those kids are going to be coached as they come up through the funnel. And really, I'll kind of stop there and see, if there are any questions, thoughts, feedback. This is not to forget about a group, take away from a group. I truly believe that this benefits every kid that is in our system, 5th through 8, and allows them to grow and develop at a rate that makes more sense for them, while also playing competitive ball, because our A's, we can find competitive groups for that. Our new B group, we can find competitive groups for that, and that may just be our current Lakes Region group that we play in. Our C or 5th and 6th grade group, we can go find schools that make sense that are a little bit smaller, where they can play real productive games, where we're not putting our Alton or Barnstead B team up against Kingswood, and Kingswood's B team is all 7th graders and they beat us by 50. It's just not, it's not an optimal setup to give kids a love of the game and have them develop at the right rate, so they have an opportunity to be successful when they get to high school. I said I was gonna stop. One last thing. The NHIAA is also in a process right now of potentially getting into middle school athletics. And so they've approached the, I believe it's called Tri-Town or Tri-State group, which is like 90 middle schools, and they're potentially going to come in and kind of take over that middle school infrastructure. They want to do it, obviously, because it gets kids used to the process of being an NHIAA student athlete, the procedures, all of that sort of stuff. But what it'll do is basically tier the teams in the state if you're within that league. So they're really going to separate out kind of A, B, C, D, do it regionally, and really create some infrastructure at the middle school level. So the timing of this could also be very, very beneficial for us, where we get kids playing appropriate schools based off of their current skill level.
I don't hate it. Like I like the thinking. I like the thought process. I like bringing new ideas and not being complacent where we are. So like I appreciate that aspect of whatnot. But like I think one like logistically, I feel like it's gonna be a nightmare. Where kids could just get out of school, go practice, and still be home by 5 o'clock. Now they're either catching a bus, go practice at Barnstead, and then busing back and things like that. I think logistically it's gonna be a lot. Like I know it's gonna be doable, but it's a lot, and then we're gonna be asking kids and families to kind of adjust to that. So I don't necessarily love that aspect of it. And then from the iron sharpens iron standpoint, like, well, now we're taking that away from our kids. So the kids that could benefit of practicing against our best kids, like our best 8th grader practicing against our best 6th and 7th graders. Well, now you're taking that 8th grader out of the equation, so our 6th and 7th graders aren't practicing against the best and bettering themselves and building the whole program. So like the iron sharpens iron, it goes both ways. Like I totally take our best and play against other best, but then that also hurts Alton's younger group of not playing against our own best. And then just like the community feel of like we're losing Alton sports. So like the community feel of, hey, this is Alton, this is our sports, this is what we represent and things like that. Like we're gonna lose a little bit of that with this. So those are my main concerns. Like again, I definitely see the benefit of it, but there's also a lot of issues with it too, I see at the same time. So that's kind of where I'm at.
How does this fit into the school mission? I couldn't find the mission statement. I don't know what the mission statement is. But how does something like this fit into it?
We're a community of compassionate critical thinkers, who persevere to create global citizens.
We're trying, is it experiential part of this? I mean, is that, used to be part of middle school, be experiential, and I don't see us losing that, not gaining it. I want the kids to participate.
Right, so you think they might be scared to participate if it's more so,
That could be
now
part
it's
of
more
it,
competitive
but
this
all
way?
of a sudden, was your career over at the 7th grade?
Right.
When you could play,
Right, and play with your friends that you've been
Yeah,
in this school with since kindergarten.
Yeah, it's a neighborhood.
Again, it's that community feel that you might lose a little bit, yep.
It's cool.
Yep.
We it's here for them, it's here for the kids to play.
Well, that's my concern, is just some of the kids that aren't good enough, or that won't be able to play or get cut, what are they doing with their time after school? Like, I would much rather them be on the field playing, learning about working as a team, all the benefits of the emotional, social environment that is on the field or on the court or on the cross country, runs, like that they're experiencing that, but they're not gonna get it anywhere else. I'm really concerned about the kids that just don't have anywhere else to go after school. Like, this is their one outlet to sports. Their guardians can't afford to pay to play, environment. I mean, I've seen it on the soccer field where there are the kids that maybe weren't material for like A team, but they got to play. And my God, like when they scored, everybody was cheering, and that was such a boost to that kid. And I've also seen one of the kids come onto the soccer team that probably wouldn't have been, assigned to the A team because he'd never played soccer before, was kind of meh, but he was one of our very, very strong players last year, or this past fall, because he was given that chance and found the niche position for him to play in, and I'm concerned about that part of it.
Yeah, I think there's always gonna be a spot for kids. I don't think like there's not gonna be cuts, like we're not gonna
Correct.
show run teams and things like that. Like there'll always be an option for these guys, and it's just a matter of like who they're gonna be with is gonna be more so my concern. Cause those are all valid concerns of being like, because like a kid still might not play because, all my friends are on A team with Barnstead now. Well, why would I go play on the B team with other, so it's still a valid point, I believe, but at the same point, there will always be a team for kids. I just don't, I'm leaning towards no on it just from a community feel, a logistic feel, our culture and what's best for Alton, what's best for Alton kids. I think we do have strong programs. I think the way this got brought up is because Barnstead was frustrated with their programs and they wanted them to play with Alton kids. So that's where it's more so, I think.
I can actually just address that. That's not where it came from. This is actually coming from me.
Okay.
So there were a Barnstead coach and an Alton coach who wanted to see if we could do this for basketball this year. That's kind of a separate animal.
Yeah.
This is me looking at our athletic department as a whole and trying to find the right way to make sure that we have a funnel that is set up that is generating teams that can compete at the high school level. I have really wrestled with the community piece of it. I mean, listen, I live in not this community, but I live in Barnstead. And completely understanding of we have our own gyms, we have our own logos and all those things that come along with it. But I also think about when my kids stepped foot at Prospect Mountain, I didn't lose any feel of community with them being put with Alton kids and wearing a Prospect Mountain uniform. I was still prideful of Barnstead at that point.
My opinions are, you go to this game after school with your buddies and your classmates and you win, and you are on that high, and you come into school the next day and you're celebrated, and you're the only Alton kid in your class, and then, just for the sport's sake, your other teammates are all celebrating in Barnstead, or, back and forth, opposite, they could all be here in Alton, and you got that one Barnstead kid, and you have the sense of pride in your school when you walk through the door the next day, and I don't wanna lose that. I want the kids to celebrate on the field, and then I want them to come to the school the next day together. My kids are competitive athletes. They've played rec where they had fun. That was why they went there, to talk and have fun. And then they came to school here, and then they played and they competed, and we had coaches throughout these 4 years that played to win, and then played to be fair, and then played because, for whatever their personal reason was. So I've seen it all in that regard through middle school athletics. I've been a parent on that side of it. Do I love watching competitive sports? Yes. Do my children play them? Yes. My kids play them. But for this school, I like to be competitive. I mean, I think our boys this year, this 8th grade boy class is great, they're competitive. Do I want that? Yes, but I also feel like this has to be something that you come and you play middle school sports with your buddies and you go to class with them and you see them every day and I know you said you're not gonna make cuts, but when you're building a competitive middle school to be a competitive high school, there is gotta be something where there will be some divide between students, right?
Yep.
I just don't know if middle school is the
I
place
mean, that
for
happens now with A and B though. Kid hears they make the B team and they say, I'm not playing. And they're a
That
7th
does
or 8th
happen.
grader. It happens now at both schools.
It does, that does happen. And I don't feel like even our B teams as they are now get enough experience with games. They don't have enough, they don't go into tournaments. Why don't they play in tournaments now as a B team?
Or even like our A team, our soccer and basketball teams have been very good. It's like, why can't we just schedule better competition? Why can't we schedule these Alton teams that have been very good? Why can't we just schedule them to play better teams rather than joining the Barnstead then schedule better teams? Why can't just we schedule
Yeah.
better teams right now?
Why are
for
we
Alton?
doing that now?
It's
Like,
great
we had
question,
our-
because in my opinion, when we put them together, our A team will always be competitive, because we may have 10 great soccer players in Alton right now and 2 in Barnstead. You flip back a couple of years ago, those numbers were the opposite. So if I'm like, I'm gonna put Alton up against Runlet Middle School in Concord every year, there's gonna be 1 year out of 5 that we're competitive, and I can't go to Runlet every year and be like, no, never mind, I'm not gonna schedule this year because we're not good. You know, so like you have to have some consistency with your scheduling, where I feel like if the schools are combined and you have your true A players, I would always feel comfortable scheduling that game, and I can create a consistent schedule for those kids to play meaningful competitive games. Because I look at our basketball team in Alton right now. How many actual real games did they play this year? 1? Maybe that was like any sort of challenge
Now
this
it's
year,
the one loss.
right? Like 1. They weren't allowed in the Winnisquam tournament because they didn't want them there because they were gonna go and win the whole thing. Like they didn't even they actually sent our check back, because they didn't want them in there. Now, you know, could we find maybe some other tournaments for them to go into? Yes, but as far as like the pure league scheduling, they're gonna get held back a little bit because we have to resort to the mean, which is probably the Lakes Region League. And there's gonna be times where we're good, times where we're bad at both schools, and kind of, you know, ride that wave.
I know, and I don't feel like that was fair what they did to these 8th grade boys this year.
I agree.
But
Yep.
they should be doing the same thing by not saying, oh, well, you know, be feeling comfortable, going to them saying, well, you know, we don't feel like playing with you this year, but we wanna play with you, you know what I mean, like,
But what will happen, James, when the NHIAA takes over scheduling?
Yep. I think this actually positions us in a great way because the schools would be together. We can go, it's not gonna be like enrollment based, it won't be as strict as, let's say, the high school. You can decide to be in their league, you can decide to be in their league and play other games as well. There'll be like a minimum, like maybe 8 games you have to play to qualify for their playoffs, but we could still go play Gilmanton if they weren't in it, or Guilford. They're not gonna be strict about like out of league games. And that kind of opens up the ability for your B teams, your 5th and 6th grade teams to still go and find appropriate competition locally that matches the skill set of those kids. And by the way, I don't want to appear combative. I've been wrestling with everything you're saying. Because I have kids in the community still, and I'm thinking about 5 years from now, what does that look like? 10, maybe I'm 10 years away. I'm really looking at it as the person who you all hired to produce the best athletic results in our district, and how do we do that?
Alright, speak logistically to me, yeah.
We need to wrap it up.
I was gonna say, just,
Go ahead.
what would a so we bus kids to a school, we'd bus kids back and forth for practices and things like that.
We traditionally bus them there, if it's right after school, and then the parents pick them up. So we do this right now with wrestling, girls soccer, and with our cheerleading team.
Okay.
And so we if the practice is right after school, we have the bus picks the kids up at one place, brings them to the other. For the smaller sports, we use vans from time to time. This might be a conversation around just an athletic bus that is gonna go from one school to another to get kids from point A to point B.
As a parent, that sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, and listen, I totally agree. We've had very few negative pieces of feedback from the 3 sports that we're doing this right now. Now, they've been done out of necessity. It was you do this or, you know, you may not play or you have to play co-ed or something like that. But the logistics, I have a plan for them and probably more time than we have here. Maybe that's another piece of this conversation is around logistics, because we have to figure out what's a tryout process look like. How do you interview and hire coaches? You know, like how do you make sure it's objective? And we're not having an Alton coach who's picking all Alton kids and then Barnstead people are mad or vice versa.
Right.
And I do actually have all of that, that we could chat about too, but.
Yeah, again, I think it's a good thought, like, I understand where you're completely coming from, but I think the benefit isn't worth the headache and what it takes away from the school.
It's actually gonna be 2 buses, we need one for the B team to go somewhere,
Right.
and one for this A team
You
to
need
go
one to go
somewhere.
there, one to
So
go
you
there,
need 2 buses every day. And then it's a half an hour traveling,
and there's already bus shortage,
yeah.
so that's why I don't
It's
think.
just, why it's like,
Yeah,
We need a
I'm not
motion?
opposed to it, but I'm not interested in doing this right now.
Yeah. Like, I get it, I totally get it.
I don't think we have a motion, we don't have to act on it. That's just
You do not.
opinion, so.
You know. This brings you around to me, if
It's
that's okay.
not
Madam Chair.
something, I mean, I would definitely like entertain it at some point, but it doesn't feel like it's all gelled together and cohesive yet, and
I don't personally have a particular dog in this little fight. I predict you will talk about it again.
yeah, I'm open
I'm
to
not
it.
sold that right now is the time to do it, so do what you're doing and continue the discussion and think about it. 10 years ago, we had 100 more students at Alton Central School than we have now. We have 2 kindergarten rooms. Up until last year, we had 3. So that's a long runway, right, before those children are in middle school. But that is the trend, right? And we know this isn't news, so right now may not be the time, but this is the conversation. It is wonderful to have a very competitive boys basketball team, boys soccer team. We have a pretty darn good girls basketball team at the high school right now with how many Alton girls on the roster? 0. So that is a factor as well, that when we're strong in something, it's easy to say, we've got to keep this, but that pendulum's going to swing. And there will be, or there are other sports that we're just not thinking about or as aware of right now.
So that's
that are
also
really
good,
struggling.
honestly, that's a good example of, we don't need, like, it allows the pendulum to swing, because it allows Barnstead to succeed, it allowed them to sharpen iron at Barnstead during their middle school practices to now be a competitive high school team. They didn't, like, it could go both ways.
You could absolutely, Eric, and there might be a girl who grew up in Alton who, boy, if I'd been able to develop with that group of girls, maybe I'd still be playing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I just think that as enrollment look, enrollment's not going to increase for 20 years. That's just the reality of the world we're living in. And I don't know if it will get so small as to force something like this.
Right.
But I think this
It may be
conversation will
easier,
come up, right?
Yeah.
This will continue to come up.
Yeah, that'd be a much easier discussion, once numbers are dwindling, it's finding a B team and things like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, James.
Good luck.
Don't say sorry to me.
I think James has plenty to do next year.
Yes.
So I don't think anyone
Yes.
goes into an apology. That's another part of this for me, like, good conversation.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank you.
everyone.
Okay.
There really is a lot on the plate,
Yeah.
I do
in
feel bad,
athletics here.
and I do feel bad,
Not like,
But
for Alton kids,
I do
think this
worry
is a-
about it,
Yeah,
and
don't
I'm
feel bad.
I'm still worrying enough, too much to say yes right now.
no need.
All right. Hi, Heidi. Let's get your financial report out of the way. Thank you for your patience.
I don't have anything concerning.
Okay.
Great answer.
That's great news. Thank you. Buildings and grounds reports.
I didn't see anything too concerning
excited to see the sound panels go in over February break.
Yeah, you know,
That'll be great.
Yeah.
Thank you to Kevin for keeping up on everything going on. Special ed reports. Looks like we've got some new referrals and,
There's nothing unusual there, it's all,
okay. Janice.
Busy as usual here at ACS between the spelling bee and the read bowl that took place in the school, and now Gunstock ski days, and thanks to our 516 adding ice fishing to those Fridays. All of our 5th and 6th grade students are now ice fishing on the days that the other students are skiing. It's been
Just
amazing.
right down here, yeah.
No, they're going all over to
Oh, really?
different, yes, so
Okay.
different locations every week.
Oh, wow.
They get to find out which lake has the most fish.
Yeah.
The first one did not. The most recent one, they did really
So
well.
it was a risk, yeah.
It is a risk, but they're having a great time, and we're excited to have that. Our 3rd and 4th grade students are also snowshoeing during that time. The kids who are back in the building, so
Well,
getting them outside, getting them active, and enjoying, to have some fun like the other kids are. Read Bowl was especially fun. It was our first year doing that, thanks to Kate Noon, who's joined us this year. She brought it in, and it was impressive. Over 105,000 minutes for the classes that participated. It was a great time. And then we are continuing with our professional development initiatives. Done some training for PLCs to really look at data to help make those times that they meet more effective and understanding what they need to be looking at. We did a workshop on understanding ADHD in the classroom. Our school psychologist facilitated that. That was pretty informative. I think our teachers walked away with a lot of information that they may or may not have already had, but certainly some tools to implement in the classroom. And then Mike Anderson, Leading Great Learning, we're continuing to work with him. He's been going into classrooms and doing observations and providing feedback to our teachers at their request, what he would like them to see. Assessments, obviously, I think our intervention team spoke pretty thoroughly about STAR and DIBELS that just took place in January. And we're currently at 425 students. So we're pretty proud of everything that we've done this year.
Thank you. Matt?
Good evening. We continue our 12 through K vertical alignment. Both our math and social studies departments have already met with our grades 5 through 8. Tomorrow our science group meets, and then social studies has already scheduled their second meeting, so that will be good. This right before our March 10th Professional Development Day, and so we'll continue throughout this year working on the scope and sequence and aligning it with our high school curriculums. We had a group of people who attended Capturing Kids' Hearts, the flagship training on February 10th and 11th. But the sort of premise behind Capturing Kids' Hearts is about building strong relationships with students, and not just relationships, but authentic ones. And we know that when kids feel seen and valued, less behaviors, better academics. And so one of the things that I've asked them to do is kind of go to this, that this was by no means a top-down decision, but it was a decision that they would come back and meet with myself and Janice to talk about this. We'll be meeting Wednesday to go through, to debrief on it, and then talk about what the potential next steps will be. The feedback was very powerful. Everybody that attended came back with the same thought process, that this is something that we should be taking a look at moving forward. So, but we'll have an opportunity to do a little bit of debriefing on Wednesday, and then we'll have our next steps, and I'll bring that to the next board meeting. Our literacy committee meets tomorrow, and we are beginning the process of evaluating the different programs that the team has brought together, and we'll use a sort of an evaluation tool that we developed based off of the feedback, not only from the literacy committee members, but also the feedback from our faculty and staff. So the teams will be researching and using that evaluation tool and the different programs that we are looking at. The idea will be is once we break that down, then we'll figure out which ones we want to pilot. We'll do some piloting in April, and then our literacy committee members will be going out and visiting some of the schools that are implementing these programs now to get a good understanding, and talk to the teachers that are implementing to get a good feeling as to how it works. And again, as I've said previously, our goal will be to come to you maybe May or June with a recommendation on which program we would like to adopt moving forward, with the understanding that we'll do a lot of professional development next year prior to implementation in the following school year. I think it's important for us to really have a good handle on how this program works and how do we implement it versus saying, hey, great, you got 3 weeks, good luck, and we'll see you in June. So, and then lastly, I am working with several Lakes Region school districts, Governor Wentworth, Guilford, Inner Lakes, and Molten Borough. And we're looking at this New Hampshire Secondary Innovation Project. And what the whole premise is that we're focused right now on grades 7 through 12. And if you look at sort of the literature I have there, you know, we've been working a lot with student-driven flexible pathways, looking at the way we do our assessments, interdisciplinary authentic learning experiences. I think our humanities classes do a lot of that stuff, trying to branch that out. And then looking at student-centered instructional practices. And this would be a great opportunity for people to take advantage of this and work not only with a group of people from our schools, but also schools in the Lakes region. The idea is that we will sort of, this is kind of like a pilot piece, and then we would branch out into North Country, Southwest, things of that nature. And we are looking at a couple of funding sources for that piece of it. We're also looking at the potential of offering graduate credit for those who participate in it through Antioch. So it's a great way for people to do that. And the idea would be, it would be a couple years through the process, so they can get anywhere between 3 to 9 credits. So again, when you think about, you know, not only recertification, but sliding on the scale, it would be helpful there. Plus, bringing other school districts together with us is always a positive piece, because that collaboration can be beneficial for everybody. So I'll have more on that. I'm meeting with the state, a Zoom meeting on Friday, and then hopefully we'll have some ideas of grant funding that'll be available for us.
Cool. Thank you.
Two things tonight. I'm gonna do the second one first, if it's okay. It's new in your packet today. You're aware, because I notified you, and maybe you're aware other ways, that one of our buses slid into a snowbank last Wednesday. We did get a little bit of feedback from a couple of parents and also internally that caused me to question all the detail around how First Student responded to that incident. So I've asked some questions. I actually received a response kind of while we were here tonight, so I'm gonna hold off and process that all tomorrow. I don't think that anything dramatically wrong took place, but it's always worth, after something like this, just to go over the protocols, make sure they're right. If there had been injuries, if it had been something more serious, it's just nice to know that we're properly prepared to communicate effectively and ensure student safety. So right now, I don't have a lot to add to what I wrote for you today. Like I said, I did get a response a little bit earlier this evening from the folks over at First Student. I'll talk to them some more tomorrow. If I think there's more worth talking about, I can certainly report back to you again. But right now, I think it's probably okay. I have already made some suggestions to them, as you can see, about some changes. For one thing, that first view announcement that goes out has to be written in plain English and have enough detail in it that parents can understand what's actually going on. I don't know if I gave you the exact language of what went out, but you had to sort of read between the lines to really understand what was happening, and that's not great. We need to do better than that. So we're also working, as I told you in this memo, to make sure the principals have that information so that when something goes out to parents, we know about it. And how that exactly is going to work might not be just as I imagined. We're sort of going back and forth with First Student about how that'll go. So I just, I think it's important because you all live in the communities and you're responsive to friends and neighbors and, right, folks who have kids in the school, to know that when things like this happen, we don't just go, oh, hope that doesn't happen again. We actually dig in, we look at the detail, and we try to make sure that we're better prepared for next year.
Cars are gonna go through the winter,
It does snow,
Stuff like this is gonna happen, it's just a matter of being being communicative and what happens and make sure everyone knows what's going on.
Yep, so I think we're probably in an okay place, but I just wanna make sure that everyone's equipped to just keep getting better, right, every time something happens like this. The little more serious thing that I have for you, and I hope it didn't come out of left field, because my rule number 1 is supposed to be no surprises. I don't like sending you a memo for a school board meeting about something I didn't already talk about at a previous meeting. I actually try to never do that, I don't know if you've noticed, but I try to talk about something at least a month in advance, sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 months in advance before I ask you to do it. That didn't happen in this case, and it's because, as we've been working with a small number of students in the Granite State Academy Innovation Program, the alternative program at the high school, we've been working with Department of Education staff on where do we enroll them, how do we track the data, how will we be able to look at these students' enrollments and testing data separately from our other schools? That's really the central question. So at a meeting about 2 weeks ago, Department of Education staff suggested create an alternative school for the K through 8 level, and an alternative school. You're gonna see a memo just like this for tomorrow night. If you've already looked at your packet for tomorrow night, you saw it, for the 9 through 12 level. And these will give us data environments to put currently 7th and 8th grade students in the K through 8 school, and 9 through 12 students in the 9 through 12 school. The key important piece here for us is to be able to distinguish these students from the kids who attend our in-person schools. That is the only purpose for us of doing this, but this is the procedural way that the department has come up for us to do this. Yeah.
I have a question, and
Yeah.
we went over this before, and I forgot to ask it, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. Well, the kids in the GSA,
Yep.
they'll get a diploma that says GSA.
So we will be able to issue them a diploma from the joint board that says Granite State Academy.
Okay. I had a couple people ask me, and they were concerned that it was gonna be a Prospect Mountain diploma.
So
But the kids didn't really attend Prospect Mountain.
it's a diploma issued by the joint board of Prospect Mountain High School
But it says-
for that alternative program. We can put what we want on it.
Thanks. I know it's not the high school meeting.
Yeah. But it's accreditation,
Yeah.
right? It's accreditation, sort of falls under the high school.
Yeah,
It's
that's-
approval as a public school program by the State Board of Education is because it's a program of the high school.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's both, but we can design that diploma to make sense for our students.
Now, kids in, again, this is high school, I think, but.
It
maybe
really
like
makes sense though, doesn't it, Mike? We need to talk
Oh,
about it.
yeah. So, do those kids participate in Prospect Mountain or Alton
Yeah, they don't.
activities? Okay.
Unless they happen to live in Alton or Barnstead
Then they can't,
and enroll in this program,
and then they can't,
then they would.
So if I-
because they live in the, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, so if I enroll my kid in this program,
Who
he's
lives
still
in
able to
Alton.
participate in sports in this,
Okay,
Then
Yeah.
join the baseball team.
gotcha.
all the way up front.
I don't wanna talk about fall sports right now.
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
I've asked a couple times.
Join the
Yeah,
team.
hands on it.
Thanks. After all the sports stuff tonight and everything,
Yeah.
all these things are
Yes.
popping, I got these bells off my head.
Yeah, and it's on our, look, honestly, it's on our list of things to figure out with the department and the NHIAA, right? Because they're very separate. The Department of Education does not get involved in sports. The NHIAA sort of has sole authority over sports, but we've laid some groundwork. We're trying to cross one bridge at a time, right? There is precedent for students who do not attend their local school to participate in sports with their local school. There are
Right.
students who attend private schools, for example, who are still allowed to participate in sports where they live at their public school. So we have to work with the NHIAA on that, not just the Department of Education.
GSA is considered a public school.
That's part of Prospect Mountain High School. It's a public school. It's publicly funded, free to families.
So it's part of Prospect, but.
Yeah, it's part of Prospect, but it's an
How many
alternative
students are-
school and alternative program.
Yeah.
What I'm asking you to do tonight at the K through 8 level, pending the same action by Barnstead, right, because we gotta do this as a partnership. And then tomorrow night at the joint board level is create alternative schools to hold these alternative programs.
What do the teachers think about this, especially the elementary? Has it been run through them or by them, or
Our teachers will never
doesn't it do anything?
never meet a student or have any work responsibility
There won't be
for.
like, let's see, there won't be a situation where a teacher makes a recommendation for a student to attend the Granite State Academy or something, I don't know.
In not any more, Mike, than a teacher might say, hey, you know, Strong Foundations Charter School might be good for you,
Like
which,
that.
right, which I doubt
I need
happens
a
very
guidance guy.
often.
I need to teach making reference.
So I
Teach
don't
making
think so.
reference to a
And
guidance
actually,
guy.
it's
Hey, Bobby,
interesting,
credit
when
stays
our,
good for you, yeah, no.
when our-
It's not what I read.
when our innovation plan was approved by the state board, one of the things that started was a conversation I've been having with NEA New Hampshire. And one of the things they asked of me was, would our bargaining unit teachers, this was at the high school, but it applies to all of our
Yeah.
schools, would our bargaining unit teachers be responsible for teaching online, supervising these students,
There you go, yeah.
proctoring tests,
Yeah.
or really any contact with Granite State Academy? And the answer is no, they would not. Because that would create a change in working conditions for the teachers in our bargaining units. Our teachers who work at Alton Central School are responsible for implementing the instructional program inside these walls.
Yeah.
That's it. So anything we're doing in an alternative school or alternative program is separate and would have its own staff with their own responsibilities. That's really important in the world of collective bargaining,
Yeah.
right? Because we have a CBA at each of our schools for the teachers that governs their working conditions, their schedules. Well, that's all in person, it's from 7 whatever time in the morning until 2 or 3 something in the afternoon with this much prep time, and right, that's all very clearly spelled out in those agreements. Get into an alternative online school, it's completely different,
Okay.
and none of that applies.
Good. Thank you.
So, normally, I'd wanna talk about something one month and ask you to consider doing it the next month. But in this case, if you're comfortable, now if you're not, you're not, right? And we schedule a meeting when we're able to come back to this. But what I'm asking you to consider is 2 things. First of all, an alternative school by regulation can be established by one school board or in collaboration with other school districts. The only thing that makes sense here, I doubt we have to discuss this, is for Alton and Barnstead to do this collaboratively, because that's how the whole thing has been done at the older levels. And that's why I drafted this MOA for you, which I discussed with your attorney. And that would essentially say, yeah, we're doing this together. And then the second thing is to vote to actually establish the alternative school. Now, the process of doing that, and I can't hardly believe this myself, is to take that vote. There is no other process. There are no forms to fill out. There, like,
I saw that, yeah.
I send the minutes of potentially this meeting to the Department of Education, and they say, oh, okay, great, and they create it. And it is basically, it's a database. That's what it is. They create a database that we can then enroll students into. And yes, this is all part of this experiment, right, that we're building, and we'll see what happens. Like, I'm not even sure today that it's gonna fly, but this is the next step in the road.
So it's not just for our students, this is for any elementary student.
No, that is the whole point, is that it's for any student.
It's just like the high
Yeah.
school, Granite State
Any student
Academy,
Right.
yeah.
Any student
And
who,
this is
tear
really to
schools apart.
segregate the testing scores.
that's the main
So
thing.
that
I
it
don't-
doesn't
I don't
bring
love
us
it,
down
honestly.
if we just have a bunch of kids. that-
Down or up, or just confuse the data. You know, when we look at the New Hampshire SAS test data for Alton Central School, we wanna know that we're looking at the kids who go to school here, in this building. We don't want 100 other kids mixed into that data who don't go here. We need to see their scores. They're going to take the test, but we really want that in a separate data set. So we look at test scores for the alternative school kids, and we look at test scores for the Alton Central School kids as 2 separate things. That's what's driving this.
So if you open this to the K through 8 and you have the alternate school here of K through 8, will then this board be in charge of graduating an 8th grader and putting a Alton Central School? Or will it still be a Prospect Mountain School?
Yeah, so the
diploma
purpose-
by GSA?
The purpose of the MOA to do this collaboratively with Barnstead would be to govern this thing together.
Okay,
And what I wrote in, I'm sure some of you have reviewed it, but what I wrote here is either the full joint board will make the decisions together, you already have monthly meetings, Or if the joint board voted to do so, you could create a board with 2 members from each town just to deal with all of this GSA stuff going forward. And you could do that at any time.
When would they be looking to enroll students for K through 8?
So that currently, this is gonna get worse, Eric, because you asked that question.
Yeah.
I think you might have known that. So currently, the answer to that is pending the March votes on the warrants that each in Alton and Barnstable have an article expanding open enrollment to down to kindergarten. But, and I think you might have known this before you asked, but there are 2 bills before the legislature right now that would essentially invalidate those votes and allow you to enroll students all the way down to kindergarten without action by your annual meeting. And the status of those bills right now is one has been approved by the Senate and is waiting to be scheduled for a House committee hearing. The other one is actually an amendment to a bill previously approved by the House. So now it's going back to the House for them to take a vote to concur or not concur with the Senate. And the latest we've heard is that it is likely to be sent to what's called a committee of conference, where some folks from Senate Ed and some folks from House Ed get together and look at the differences between what the House wanted in its bill and what the Senate wants in its bill, try to resolve those differences. Typically when this happens, it's because there's a 3-way conversation going on between House leadership, Senate leadership, and often somebody from the governor's office to work out the language that all 3 can agree on, so that then the House can vote, the Senate can vote, and the governor will sign. And that's where that is right now.
It's gonna be chaos.
You get emails about open enrollment. What do you got?
So most of what you're hearing and reading is overblown panic
Yeah,
and not what's really going to happen.
right.
But something is going to happen, and I do think that the likely outcome of a committee of conference is going to be that the brakes get pumped on when new, not existing, but new open enrollment programs can be implemented. The bills that have been passed through the Senate right now have implementation dates of this coming July 1st. And I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people are going, wait, whoa, whoa,
Right.
what's gonna happen? I won't be surprised, and this is just my prediction, I don't have inside information, but this is my prediction. My prediction is that what we see come back to the House and Senate for approval has some mechanism built in, either for rulemaking or a study commission or something, so that legislation still goes into effect July 1st, because a bunch of districts are taking votes right now that I think probably the majorities in the House and the Senate want to sweep off the table and invalidate by changing the legislation, but then give the field time, give the Department of Education or the state board time to write rules, issue guidance, explain how it's all going to work. And I would be surprised, beyond our program that's already operating, if new programs are allowed to launch for another year. But again, just my guess. But that would sort of help maybe answer some of the current panic.
How do you guys feel? Do you want
I can make a
another
motion now.
time to, some time to sit on it? Like, well,
We can
we'll have
always
to
do it
push the meeting.
tomorrow after our JMA.
Yeah.
If you want more time than that, we can push it back,
Yeah,
right? A little quick
we can do
meeting.
another
I don't
meeting
know this
next
program
month.
from the start, but that's just me, and I've been overvoted.
That would be nice. So,
Cause I've always liked the open enrollment idea with the high school, I've never loved the online school portion. Like, I understand it from a revenue standpoint, but the mass chaos that I feel like this is gonna cause,
Mass chaos of what?
forcing other schools to pay kids that go to school online. Cause that's what's happening.
I mean, it's gonna happen at some point. Whether we take it on, or some other school district decides to run it with it.
Well, that's why I feel like it honestly won't get approved. Or I feel like honestly like hurts our open enrollment at our high school with this, cause people are gonna look at this open enrollment idea and not love it, and I don't know, that's just me.
For the class option, if you are a fifth grader register, I mean, I understand more so with high school, but for like a fifth grader, their parents are gonna sign them up for this. Can they pick and choose what they wanna learn, similar to like a VLAX? Can they say, well, I'm gonna sign up for this only to do reading and writing?
We are only taking full-time enrollments.
So it'll be all subjects.
If we ever wanted to allow part-time enrollment, I'd have to come back to the joint board. We're only doing full-time students
Okay.
right now, the way it's designed. Just because it's awfully complex, and the way the funding works in the current law gets really complicated when you start thinking about part-time. Like, that's just awfully complex. Eric, I do think, and again, my crystal ball, I don't know this for sure. The number one weakness in this law in New Hampshire is the funding mechanism. And I have, since about 2022, when we started talking about this, I've always thought that there's a chance that by doing this, maybe it highlights that problem with the law, and maybe the legislature will fix that. And I don't know if that's the kind of thing that happens in the next few weeks, or the next year, or longer, or maybe they don't do it at all. It's difficult for me to imagine the current system actually being implemented widespread across the state. It's a tough way to do it.
Are we, this is K, first grade, second grade, third grade, are we endorsing an alternative school for that level? Is that, do you think, I'm saying myself, and I'm looking at you guys, but do you think that that's something you believe in?
I think it's gonna appeal to a specific subset of family that, for whatever reason,
Right, if they're
this is
homeschooling,
their,
Homeschool?
So that,
You
being
know.
a former homeschooler, right, I look at this and think like, what would I have thought about this back then, you know, when my kids were when I was homeschooling them, right? I thought that this may be something I would look into as a former homeschooling family. And I do feel like it will appeal to some as a, you know, now looking at that, you know, with the different set of eyes, I don't know how I feel. I wish that more parents that choose to homeschool would like to be involved in their kids' schooling and be the one that's teaching them. I think that's where I struggle, like I would want a family to homeschool because they choose to be home with their kids and being the teacher and being the role model that they're learning from. That's where I want families that homeschool, but I also understand that there's luxury of having a homeschooling family to go travel and do things, and you can still do school and be able to travel, and you have a lot of families that do that. If it's gonna happen, should we be the people to do it or start it? I don't know, you know?
Tim, what's it like for like, they sign a kid up for first grade
Yep.
in the alternative?
Yep.
Yeah, parent must be involved here, right?
Yeah, so they call it a learning coach. It can be a parent, but it doesn't have to be.
But it has to be
But
somebody.
every child has somebody,
Okay,
a responsible adult who has to be. And at the beginning, and when the kids are younger, they're more involved. And then as the kids get used to the system, they can be less involved. And as the kids get older, of course,
sure.
they're less involved also. But it's actually a condition of doing it,
Okay.
is that
all
every
right,
child has
that's
to
what
have
I
an
was
LC or a
was
learning
concerned
coach.
about. All right.
And the other thing is, and I understand that I've adopted this role where I'm sort of the advocate for this thing, like, and I accept that. But it's a little bit of a stretch from where I started. You know, originally, I was trying to pitch ways for the joint board to address how do we continue to fund these schools with fewer kids, so that at some point the taxpayers in Alton and in Barnstead, because our destinies are now woven together, right, since the JMA was approved 20-some years ago. At some point, the taxpayers might say, look, for this many kids and that per pupil cost, the answer is no. And then that starts to cost things that cost our kids. So that's, so there is a revenue piece of this, right, Eric? There's no question about it.
I totally understand that,
But-
I like to think about it.
But at the same time, like I hear and understand all the criticisms and concerns and all of it. Research shows that 1 to 2% of public school eligible students in any given state, today at least, will enroll in an online school. So that's really what we're talking about. We're not talking about, we're certainly not talking about trying to get the kids in Alton and Barnstead to go to this thing, right? We want these schools to be here, successful,
That's-
paying
that's
teachers
right.
well,
Yeah.
and providing better and better outcomes, we hope, for kids in terms of everybody can read and write and do math. I mean, that's what we're really here for. There will be a demand within the state for something like this, and I think that Christy has characterized this pretty well, not just tonight, but in general, like, so right now, VLAX exists, and it's the only game. Like, that's it. It's that, or a private school that you have to pay for, which then excludes some kids who are otherwise eligible for a public school. So it's complicated, for sure, but that's sort of the niche. It is the furthest thing from trying to impact our schools by removing kids from them, except that 1 to 2% that we would expect from any district might be interested.
So if a district wants to send a student to the GSA, it's very much like doing the open enrollment.
It is
It is.
open enrollment
We
right
can't
now.
have
It
money
is.
from them there
That's right.
too.
Correct.
That's right.
That's what's gonna cause a.
Under the current
Chaos.
Under the current funding mechanism in the law, yes.
Right.
And this is why I think, and again, I just think there's a chance that there's a moment here where New Hampshire has to go, is this really how we want this to work?
Right,
And maybe make a different decision.
and find funding elsewhere.
I mean, the open enrollment law, if you go back to the beginning, was part of the charter school law. Now, you may hear controversies about charter schools because people in public education have opinion about charter schools, opinions. But what you don't hear, I don't think, is a lot of controversy about how charters are funded. And that's because when a student who resides in Alton decides to enroll in a charter school, we don't get a bill. The state pays a per pupil amount to the charter school. So that model already exists, and I'm just gonna leave that at that for now.
Yeah,
But
I
there
figured
are ways for the state to
You
find their way out of this.
Yeah, you mentioned that before, so that's kind of where
Yeah.
I thought we were heading.
But I'm not the legislature, right? And
Right.
they're not predictable.
Well, how long are we locked into this for?
So your agreement that the joint board has entered into with Stride is either within the next 2 years, we extend down to kindergarten, or they're allowed to go do it with somebody else in the state if they want to.
So where are we at in that 2-year window?
This is the first of the two.
So we could push this to next year,
Yeah,
theoretically.
theoretically. I mean, I need a place to put 7th and 8th graders right now. But we're not open to K through 6 currently, and we wouldn't open to K through 6 without a decision by the joint board to open to K to 6. That's not something I would just go do. That's something the board would have to decide. But we are open right now, 7 through 12. So creating this alternative school would give us a data environment to put them in, the 7th and 8th graders, which is what really the reason I'm asking for it now, is so I can do that, so we can do that. Because those kids are gonna have to take, it's only a few right now, it's like 16 or something like that, but they need to take the SAS test, and they need to be enrolled, and we
How
need
does
to.
someone, how did they get access? When we did it, we
They-
did 7 through 12?
Yeah, well, that's what, the
Yeah.
plan was approved by the state board, 7 through 12. And the JMA allows the joint board to operate programs for grades 7 through 12. That's how it was written, probably in case you ever wanted to put 7th and 8th grade up.
Okay, that's what
Right,
it was.
yeah, that's all. So that's how we opened it. And we did a very soft launch. We got about 40 kids who found it themselves, really, no real advertising, and have closed enrollment, because now we're just using this group sort of as guinea pigs. Nobody's paying anything, we're not paying anything, families aren't paying anything, school districts aren't paying anything, and nobody's going to. This is about trying to figure out how it works, if we can make it work.
Why wasn't it out of state, are out of state people allowed in this?
No, and that's because it is public,
Right, cause of
and it
all
is
the-
funded by New Hampshire tax dollars, whether they're state or local. So they have to reside in the state, absolutely have to. In fact, not every local school checks residency every year. A lot of schools, if you can demonstrate residency when you enroll your kids, they don't continue to check.
Right.
Don't tell everybody, but, unless they have a reason to, right?
Yeah.
But in something like this, it's actually really important that you check every year,
Right,
because it's easy for a family to move
right.
and stay in an online
That's
school,
good, yeah.
right?
What do you think, Christine, Lauren?
Are you comfortable with, do you wanna sleep on it? We can meet tomorrow after the JMA, or we can create a new meeting for next month if you need more time. Could take the stress off if
I think,
it's,
yeah.
Mhm.
we don't have to do anything
another
tonight,
time.
we can push it off.
Do
We've
we,
got
do
a
we even
couple
have to do it,
options.
do we even have to do it tomorrow night, can we do it in April?
Probably in March.
Testing's in
That's
April,
what you just-
yeah.
Then we're up against,
I'd like to get set up for testing, that's the, for that group of 7th and 8th graders.
so why don't we meet in March? We'll just give it a month, and we'll just make a new meeting.
Yeah, I mean,
To do that.
people are gonna hear about it now. And
Yeah, we
now,
can have
people go.
discussions.
That'll give them a chance to.
Yeah. Reach out.
Voice, I mean,
Yeah.
you wanna make sure that they have an opportunity.
Yeah, some little warrant article too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep,
Yeah.
I'm gonna,
Well, let's do
I'll
that
put something in the
then.
big cider about it,
No
we're gonna have to,
worries.
before March.
Tim, is
No
that all
pressure.
right?
That's fine, of course.
so that would be what, the 16th we could, that would be our usual meeting time, so we can change that when we get to our next meeting date.
No, that was just,
That's after elections, after warrant articles, and have discussions.
A little bit, and we'll have some feedback maybe.
Yeah.
From folks in the community.
Yeah, cause we'll see what that warrant article is.
Okay, good.
Like, one year we wanted, 2 years.
Alright, so, personnel.
Anything personal?
We have, no.
Oh,
I saw
okay.
that too, and I.
So, yeah, but it's not, so we reported as a resignation, but Jen Dashenko is moving to the high school to take Linda Roy's old spot as our registrar. And we wrote this job description for our registrar there to be our registrar for the schools, so that we have consistent data in all of our student information systems, so when kids move from the elementary school through the middle schools to the high school, we're not having to start over and like, it's all the same, right? It all matches. So we still have people in the elementary schools who enroll new students and obviously use the data and the student information systems, but Jen will sort of oversee all of that from that seat that has already existed, that is being vacated because of Linda Roy's retirement. So, yes, it's a resignation, but Jen's not
Still
going
don't like it.
anywhere. She's just going, I know, I get it, we have mixed feelings too, except she'll do a great job.
So who's filling her position?
So we've posted, and have we started interviews, or are we scheduling interviews?
Interviews will be Wednesday and Thursday.
Okay. Alright.
And we have applicants, and we have applicants with experience in
Yes.
schools.
Oh, good.
Okay,
Yes. So we do have something in personnel.
alright, yeah, we don't have to,
Yeah,
no
it's
action
not- it's not
required,
really a
but
resignation.
accept the non-resignation of Jen Dyachenko. Good luck at the high school. Alright, public input, anything? Nothing?
I'm good.
Okay. Future agenda items, so we'll add the MOA to that. And we need a 8th grade field trip approval too. We haven't done that.
Really,
For DC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
we should do that.
We need that.
Well, now that-
We did that like
Do that
last
in
year.
August?
No,
thought we
we
did.
talked about it.
I didn't
No.
realize.
Hey, guess what, it's approved.
They hadn't, we hadn't decided,
Yeah, I don't think everything came to fruition at
Yeah.
that point. It was still being discussed with the parents and, but like all the field work, or
We'll do it in March.
field trip paperwork, I haven't seen anything from that, so. But now we should know once all the kids are paid up, you know, how many kids are going
We
and
have the classes, you brought it
all that, so.
No.
Stop.
we're still going.
We did a great job over the weekend raising money for it.
up.
You're slinging hot chocolate.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else for future agenda items? No? Okay.
We've got school calendars drafted, you might actually see a packet of them tomorrow night, but I'll ask you to talk about them and take action the next time you meet, and if that's gonna be in March, maybe we can do it in March.
All right, so I'll make a motion to go into non-public, right? We got, do you have something for personnel? Or no?
Real quick,
Okay.
yes, real
Alright.
fast.
So I'll make a motion to go into non-public session,
You have no
RSA
idea.
91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, A and C.
Second.
We've got roll call, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes.